Most of us here are big MOBA fans, but Sean, you are more than anything else big into Counter-Strike Go.
I am the biggest Counter-Strike fan.
We played some
here
with
in the
you
office, yeah.
last night, and it was abysmal.
It was a
so
tough game.
to brag a little bit. How much do you play? How often?
I mean,
rank? What rank are you?
So I'm DMG in the ladder, which is Distinguished Master Guardian. It's commonly known as Badge. It's decent. There's definitely players better than me on the ladder. I don't ladder all that much. I played professionally 1.6, but that was when I was in high school and had time. Now I have who has the time
You have
anymore?
money to make now.
Yeah, I have work to do. As much
We
as
all
I
got
hate it,
sad.
and
Yeah.
I would
Like,
rather
everyone
honestly
was
play
like
Counter-Strike.
faraway look in your
I
eyes.
felt
Like-
the room just get sad.
That's kind of, it's part of why I don't play it so much, is because like when I play that game, I try so hard to be good because I love it so much, but I just can't because you have to dedicate so much time in order to be anywhere near the level of the people who actually dedicate time into
Yeah.
it.
So, yeah, we brought this up because this last weekend was DreamHack,
Yeah.
which I watched a ton.
I was
of.
getting so many texts from James about like amazing games you gotta watch at Thanksgiving. I'm like, I'm cooking dinner, I can't.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that it had to fall on like a Thanksgiving weekend because I couldn't watch as much as I wanted to either, but you wouldn't have known it based on the viewership numbers, especially
it
for
did really well.
Yeah, it did really, really well. And I actually was one of these people who thought that, particularly for CSGO, you were going to see the numbers impacted because of all this sort of bad PR leading up into the tournament, which I guess we can talk about. But you didn't see it. That was really good.
So I did not get to see any of this, but the big thing that came out of DreamHack was the Fnatic drama. Did anybody else catch this?
It was like
Yes.
multiple instances, like leading into and
Yeah, so it,
Give us a bit of a
during-
recap. Like, what
yeah.
happened at DreamHack? What was the giant Counter-Strike Go controversy, and how does it affect the sport?
So what you need to know is at DreamHack, originally LDLC played in the semifinals, I believe it was, played against Fnatic, and Fnatic played or used a tactic that was by the rules considered not fair and should have been disqualified. What they did was pixel walking on the top level of Overpass, which basically gives who the pixel walker is a huge field of view of the whole map. You can see down into bomb site B, which is supposed to be totally obscured from anyone who's in A, which is above it. You can see down almost to T-spawn. You can see through to the sewers. You can see basically a huge part of the map. And this is something that, one, it's against the rules that DreamHack has established, like pixel walking is against the rules. Two, it's a little bit more controversial because it's not as if they figured this out during the match. Like
Yeah,
they
this
knew,
wasn't an accident. They had this in their back pocket.
Yeah, they had practiced this strat for weeks, maybe even months leading up to this, knowing that it could come into competitive play.
Well, and had apparently also let somebody at DreamHack know that they knew, but
Yeah.
asked them not to tell anybody, which is extra gross.
There's a lot of like gray area there where Fnatic may have been like utilizing this exploit in their advantage or to their advantage,
Yeah.
having, basically sitting on this knowledge, saying like, we're not going to let anyone else know about it until we use it, and we're going to use it to help us win money.
So for some quick clarification, I saw a picture of this on Twitter, and it's basically they're just like standing on like geometry that
thin
isn't
air.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're,
It's
they're,
like a
higher up in the
pixel
air.
in the game
Yeah.
that it shouldn't be there, but it is.
It's basically adding another ledge so you can peek over the top of
Yeah.
a wall.
Exactly.
That you shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, so there is no actual geometry there that is supposed to allow you to get a field of view that high up in the air. And pixel walking, and the reason it's called that is because it's literally a line of pixels that you wouldn't have known is otherwise there other than
And this is just an error
accidentally
in,
finding
like,
it.
level
Yeah, and if
design.
you go
Yeah.
if you go into source, like you can find like, oh, this is just pixels. It's
Yeah,
not
definitely
it's
not
not
meant
a
to
weird
be there.
geometry bug. It is just not supposed to be there.
Yeah, now, granted, this type of stuff does have like a long history in Counter-Strike. Like in previous games, you could throw a grenade through a corner to walls as long as there was just one pixel there. So it's part of the game. There's a lot of argument to be made for that, but that doesn't change the fact that by the rules that DreamHack has established for
yeah.
competitive play, it is wrong. And so immediately they should have been disqualified, and instead what happened was the match was replayed.
Well, no, it wasn't.
No, it was
It was supposed to
It
be.
was supposed to be.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
it was supposed to
actually
be. And
right,
then
yeah.
they came back and they were like, oh, no, Fnatic forfeited because they were...
That's what it was. Like the match was rescheduled. And the next tweet I saw, I actually didn't get to see the replay after it was scheduled. But yeah, it was a default, a forfeit. Yeah.
Yeah, so what happened was it went 2 maps, and then the map went... it was 12-3 in favor of LDC, and then Fnatic came back for those 13 rounds, or however many rounds.
It was
they
I
needed.
think it was like 12 rounds.
Yeah,
It
and
was
they
a
needed to
lot.
win, and so they were going to replay from the 12-3 But then Fnatic just came back and was like, "Yeah, we'll forfeit."
So
And probably
are
rightfully
you watching
so.
this happen?
Yeah.
James,
So
I didn't see
what
that
did the
match.
casters say when they saw this?
I mean, they were in shock. Like, a lot of them were just like, because it was round after round after round, and LDLC couldn't figure out where they were shooting them from, because like this is
They were firing it. I thought it was just like
Nope.
from what it sounded like, it was just like observation, like intel. So
No,
they were
no,
shooting
no,
at
no.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, the knowledge of where they're going is one huge. But
Yeah,
then being able to, someone had an auto sniper and was just like, I'm just gonna sit up here and pick you off as you come around this corner.
That's
Like,
terrible.
yeah, so it was just. I mean, there was a post interview where the interviewer was just like, I can't say anything. It was with the Fnatic players, like, I can't say anything to you because I'm just angry.
Yeah.
He was just I'm speechless. Like,
It was rough.
well, Counter-Strike is having this problem more and more. Like, we are seeing a lot of aimbotting. We're seeing a lot of hacking.
Right, and this is kind of
I
where
say
it
a
ties
lot,
in.
but it's like more recently we're seeing more of it, and it's really distracting from the sport. Like, it is kind of ruining Counter-Strike Go for me because it's something I find deeply interesting,
Yeah.
but it's just like profoundly upsetting that these players keep cheating.
And that's kind of where it's all tied together. Is there was more controversy surrounding Fnatic leading up to DreamHack before this exploit was used in competitive play, and that has to do with Flusha and Olafmeister, who are two of their key players who are under
eSports
heavy.
handles really
Good
Yeah.
old
to go.
Flusha and Olafmeister.
Yeah.
Esports handles are really gotta go.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
The Europeans, man, they're very creative in that way. But these are two players who are very high profile. Their team just won a big tournament in the last 6 months. I forget which one, sorry. But they are under great suspicion, let's put it that way, of being hackers. There's a lot of condemning footage out there that shows them perhaps maybe not the most legit players. And two professional players have already been VAC banned. And the statement they released after that, this is KQLY and SF. These are in the weeks leading up to DreamHack. Once they were VAC banned and proved as cheaters, they said that 30 to 40% of the pro community are using this exact cheat, which casted a huge downer over the tournament leading into weeks of it. So not only is the community already very suspicious of other people who are hacking because these hacks and cheats do exist in Counter-Strike, now there's this like everyone's looking over their shoulder, everyone's wondering who's cheating, and worst of all, it's not just random players. It could possibly be some of these people who make money off of it and have kind of become the pinnacles of which the community itself is based
and
on.
then if you lose, you'd be like, did we actually lose?
Yeah.
Like, you just question
Yeah.
everything.
That's the
that
thing
sucks.
is-
That's a bad spirit to kind of have around
That's
everything.
really annoying, especially because they're playing for money and they're winning money, and they're just
Totally.
like, we're going to exploit or.
As someone who loves Counter-Strike deeply, it's like it's horrible
Yeah,
to do
this
that
is
because
poison. Like, this is cancerous.
yeah,
This
well, that's the thing is like
sport.
Counter-Strike a year and a half ago had about 20 to 30,000 players online every night, and the last 6 months it's been 200, 300,000. Like
That's why
it's
you see
expanded.
Valve stepping up and releasing more expansions. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, it's like, maps and guns and new things.
Yeah,
and
there's a
skins.
lot of really cool stuff that players are like latching onto, and the community is growing as a result. And for it to come, for something like this, for a scandal like this to come at a time right before the biggest tournament with the most visibility for that game, it's really disappointing.
I will say, with all of that, like, negative and bad stuff happening, that tournament was still an incredibly fun thing to watch.
It was.
Like, there were some just fantastic matches.
And that's just on the strength of the game.
Yes.
Yeah. LDLC, NIP, even Fnatic at times, like Virtus Pro, like these guys are top of the notch, like top caliber players. And whenever you see people come head to head in a tournament like this, like you're going to see some really awesome stuff. And that is exactly what the whole tournament was like. Was just a great demonstration of why that game, why Counter-Strike Go is, I mean, why it is the shooter.
I agree. Yeah, but it was balanced out with like a bunch of controversy and then just some.
Yeah, because you just wonder like what could it have been like,
Yeah.
you know, like if people weren't accusing the people on the stream at that very moment of cheating,
Yeah.
how much more positive the reception could have been, how much more people would have been invested. Who knows? Who's to say?
Are there any big Counter-Strike tournaments coming up that this is going to reverberate onto?
DreamHack is DreamHack is the biggest one of this last year. And the
Yeah,
next
it was DreamHack winter, and like now we're in December, so
Exactly,
the year's
yeah.
kind of
So the next big one, I can't remember what it is, but it'll be in spring.
And there's like 4 a year. As what they.
Yeah, about 4 major tournaments, a bunch of small ones. There's always CEVO leagues as well, which are more like domestic based and international,
yeah.
and are not LAN tournaments. So there's always Counter-Strike going on, but nothing big, which effects like this would feasibly resonate to, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, we
That's
all live in the
nice
internet,
at
right?
least.
2 weeks from now, people won't even remember this happened,
Yeah.
probably. You
But
know?
go back and watch the finals, which was LDLC versus NIP.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the finals are so back and forth, and just it goes to overtime in the last.
Yeah, it goes to
match.
overtime.
And
yeah.
NIP is a really good team. I mean, I'd never heard of them until ESO won, and they won handily. They were incredible.
For a while there, in the early Counter-Strike Go days, like that team was untouchable.
Really.
And they're
I'd never heard of
legendary
them.
because of it, yeah.
Wow.
They have a league team too.
Do they?
Yep.
Most of these teams have
Multiple.
teams in different games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots
it's
of
not
most teams
uncommon,
do that.
yeah.
It's like you don't want to divide it, right? Like if you can make a brand out of Fnatic, then great. Do
One
that.
sort of neat tangent thing I want to touch on here is that we've seen like weird exploits win teams Dota games
Mhm.
that were just sort of like fixed by Valve later, but like there weren't specific rules set in place to say like you can't.
Yeah,
do
there was no
this.
predictive.
The pudge hooks.
The Dundee Pudge
Yeah,
Hooks
the
is probably
Allen
the
hooks,
most
yeah.
important match that there was.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about that I want to see from CS:GO in the next year is they have like the basically picks and bans for the maps.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely need to have an in-client thing because at DreamHack they were just shooting a camera over someone's shoulder as they're picking ban maps, and the casters didn't know which team was banning which. Like they need to have an in-game interface.
Well, that's the thing is CS:GO wasn't built like Dota
Yeah.
for esports. It was built to be a competitive game, but it was never built with spectatorship in mind. It was never built with a community in mind. They had to kind of
Yeah.
like jam that into the framework after the fact, and it's better,
point.
but it is still not League of Legends or Dota.
Yeah, yeah. Like again, I know that
StarCraft.
this is pretty new from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta do
But yeah,
all the
I
disclaimers.
would like to see that as an in-game interface, because rather than like being like, all right, we have no idea which team is banning which map.
Yeah, the tools for spectatorship and casting, even if that's something you're interested in, is like basically contributing to the content by not being a player. The tools are pretty scarce in that respect. They work well for what they do.
Yeah,
like
the in-game
back
stuff is incredible.
Yeah, like the in-game stuff is pretty cool. The like even back in the CS 1.3 to 1.5 to 1.6 days, the original CS, like there was HLTV, and that worked really, really well.
Yeah.
Which was essentially I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the first in-game client which you could watch a stream on and toggle between the players. Like I didn't see any other games doing that on PC back in the day. This would have been like 2002, by the way.
Way before I cared about
12
esports.
years.
As
Yeah,
a
that's
concept.
when I was playing.
Yeah.
But now you're right. The technology hasn't come a long way since then. It's still pretty rudimentary the way it was back then. And in order for it to grow, they need to make it accessible to people who don't necessarily want to jump in game or want to be able to understand what's going on without having to have a mastery of the tools themselves. And that'll make it much more accessible. It's coming. It's in time. Valve seems to be a lot slower with Counter-Strike than they are with Dota and other games. I mean,
Yeah, well, one
Reasonably
makes the
so.
money and one is slowly growing.
totally.
So we talk a lot about MOBAs on this show, Sean. I don't know if you play League of Legends or Dota.
I played a lot of Dota for a while, and now I don't play it
None of my
anymore
friends will
because
say
I
never
hate
see you
it.
on there.
Yeah, you're always playing Counter-Strike.
I hate it now. I can't deal with it because all of my friends, like, they 5-stack roll all the time, and so they're all really, really good, and I just feel like such a burden whenever I
kind of
play
like
with
when
them.
James and I rolled with you and yours playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah, that was rough.
Just-
It was a little rough.
James and I were like equal-weighted anchors on the back of this sinking ship.
And to be fair, we were at a disadvantage because this is like one of your first times in a long time, playing
yeah.
Counter-Strike.
And I'd never played competitive.
Yeah, and it was like we didn't have voice chat, so it was just like you and I were talking
Yeah.
to each other, but we couldn't communicate with you and your guys.
Yeah, that's a weird issue that I'd never seen before. But I mean, that's
that was weird.
in time. And you guys got dragged up to our skill bracket, but that's how I feel with Dota. Is like, I understand on a base level what happens enough to enjoy watching it. Like I can understand why stuff's cool or why
Yeah.
people get hyped. I can't execute any of those moves. I used to be able to, but again, it's just a time thing. Like if I'm going to dedicate enough time to be decent or even good at something, like it's going to be Counter-Strike.